In the shadow of Eden, behind the more familiar tale of Adam and Eve, lies a character erased from many modern religious narratives, known by name in ancient Mesopotamian texts, Jewish mysticism, and medieval demonology. Lilith is often described as the first woman created alongside Adam, not from his rib, but from the same earth. This detail, simple on the surface, becomes the foundation of her rebellion, her exile, and ultimately her transformation into a symbol of defiance. Lilith's story is not part of the canonical texts of the Torah or the Bible. Instead, it survives in fragmented traditions, from the alphabet of Ben Sira to Babylonian incantation bowls and the Zohar of Kabbalistic teachings. In these texts, she emerges not as a temptress or monster, but as a figure cast aside because she refused to submit. Her refusal is not violent. It is rooted in the belief that she was equal to Adam in creation and spirit. For that act, she is demonized. Literally, over the centuries, Lilith becomes many things: a night demon feared by mothers, a seductive spirit of the wilderness, a feminist icon reclaiming her voice. Her narrative is shaped not by a single culture, but by layers of interpretation spanning Jewish, Babylonian, Christian, and even Islamic traditions. Through each of these lenses, she evolves. What remains consistent is the theme of defiance against imposed roles and a search for identity beyond submission. This video will explore Lilith's origins, her portrayal in religious texts and mythology, her transformation through the ages, and her significance in contemporary thought. We will look at the historical documents that reference her, analyze her character in depth, and separate factual origins from modern reinventions, from Eden to exile, from human to myth. Lilith's journey is one of the most compelling and misunderstood in ancient lore. In the chapters to come, we will reconstruct the lost narrative of Lilith based on evidence and credible sources. Her presence may be faint, but her impact is unmistakable. This is not just a story about a woman who said no. It is a story about how history remembers or erases those who refuse to conform. The birth of Lilith, equal in clay according to the lesser-known Jewish text, the alphabet of Ben Sira. Lilith was not created after Adam, but at the same time, from the same material, dust from the earth. This contradicts the more familiar narrative of Eve's creation from Adam's rib. The detail is critical. In the early creation myth found in Genesis chapter 1, the text mentions that God created man and woman together. While many later interpret this as a reference to Eve, Jewish mystics argued that this unnamed woman was Lilith. It suggests that Lilith and Adam were equals in origin, which sets the foundation for what would become a theological and ideological rupture. Lilith refused to be submissive to Adam. Their disagreements reached a breaking point, particularly in matters of control and dominance. Lilith's story begins in Eden, but unlike Eve, she is not molded to be a helper or subordinate. Lilith declared, "I will not lie beneath you," insisting that since both were formed from the earth, neither should dominate the other. Adam demanded obedience. Lilith demanded equality. When God formed her alongside Adam, she was given the same authority, the same substance, and the same divine breath. However, conflict quickly arose. According to the alphabet of Ben Sira, the argument escalated until Lilith uttered the secret name of God and fled Eden. This act alone was monumental. Speaking the name was an assertion of divine knowledge, a power forbidden to mortals. She escaped not into death or punishment, but into the wilderness, a place both feared and free. God sent 3 angels to bring her back, Sanoi, Sansonoi, and when they found her near the Red Sea, she refused their command. As punishment for her defiance, her children, sometimes interpreted as demon offspring, were condemned to die by the hundreds each day. The narrative paints Lilith not only as rebellious but powerful. She was not banished. She chose exile. She was not cursed until she resisted a command rooted in inequality. Her departure from Eden was not the result of sin, but of principle. Lilith's creation from the same soil as Adam is not a minor plot point. It represents an alternate view of human relationships, one that challenged patriarchal structures long before the term existed. This origin marks the beginning of her journey from partner to pariah, a transformation shaped not by evil, but by independence. Demonized from woman to monster, after fleeing Eden, Lilith's story undergoes a dramatic transformation. What began as a tale of equality turns into a myth of terror. Her refusal to submit leads religious and cultural narratives to recast her not as a misunderstood woman, but as a dangerous demon, This demonization did not occur overnight. It was a gradual evolution, shaped by societal fears, religious structures, and patriarchal interpretations. In Babylonian and Assyrian mythology, long before the alphabet of Ben Sira was written, there were already references to Lilichu, female wind spirits who were associated with disease, infertility, and night terrors. These spirits were believed to haunt the wilderness, seduce men, and harm infants. It is here that Lilith's name begins to merge with older legends. Scholars believe that Lilith's identity was built upon these earlier myths, merging biblical rebellion with Mesopotamian superstition. By the time of the Talmudic period, Lilith appears as a figure to be feared. In some texts, she is described as having wings, long hair, and the power to she seduces sleeping men and births demonic children. More chillingly, she becomes associated with infant mortality. Amulets were created to protect newborns. These talismans were indeed symbolic. They were believed to have real power against the threat Lilith posed, often inscribed with the names of the three angels who once tried to bring her back to Eden. Her transformation from woman to monster reflects deeper anxieties in ancient societies. A woman who abandoned her role as wife and mother was dangerous. A female being with autonomy, knowledge of divine secrets, and sexual freedom threatened the structure of religious and family life. Demonizing her served a purpose. It warned others of the consequences of defiance. Yet even in her demonized form, Lilith retained complexity. She was not merely evil. She punished the wicked, haunted the immoral, and targeted men who acted without respect. Some Midrashic writings even show her debating with God, refusing to return unless her freedom was guaranteed. In these rare moments, her character is not fully villainous. She is fierce, articulate, and driven by conviction. Lilith's descent into the role of a demon did not erase her origins. It redefined them. She became a canvas upon which fear, morality, and control were projected. Her story was shaped not by who she was, but by what others needed her to be. A warning, a scapegoat, a myth. Lilith, in Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalistic divide in the realm of Jewish mysticism, particularly within the writings of the Kabbalah. Lilith's image becomes even more layered and symbolic. No longer just a demon of the night or a rebellious figure of Eden, plays a central role in shaping Lilith's mystical persona. Their union is described as unnatural and or the other side, the hidden realm that opposes holiness. Kabbalistic tradition sees the universe as balance between light and darkness. Without Lilith and the forces she embodies, that balance could not exist. She is not merely an adversary, but a component of spiritual tension that drives growth and purification. She is seductive, persuasive, and capable of luring righteous souls into impurity, feeding off human sins and spiritual imbalance. Here, she is not only the original woman but the consort of Samael, a powerful archangel sometimes equated with Satan or the angel of death. She is now deeply woven into the fabric of cosmic dualism, the eternal battle between purity and corruption, order and chaos. The Kabbalistic text, known as the Zohar, written in medieval Spain during the 13th century, together, Lilith and Samael represent the dark mirror of the divine pair, a shadow counterpart to Adam and Eve. In this system of belief, Lilith becomes the queen of the Sitra Achra, yet she is also recognized as a necessary part of creation. The Zohar also explores Lilith's role in human temptation. She is said to appear in dreams, especially to men, causing them to sin in thought or action. Through this lens, she becomes a symbol of uncontrolled desire and spiritual vulnerability. However, her presence is also an opportunity for moral resistance. She tempts, but humans are free to reject her influence. In this way, she becomes not just a source of danger, but a test of strength. Some Kabbalists wrote of rituals and prayers to protect against Lilith's interference. Others, more suggested that her redemption might one day be possible, a reunification of the divided feminine forces. In these rarer interpretations, Lilith is not a lost soul, but a figure awaiting reintegration. Within Jewish mysticism, Lilith is not flat or evil for the sake of fear. She is powerful, necessary, and feared not just for what she does, but for what she represents: independence, sexual energy, spiritual rebellion, and the possibility of divine imperfection. Lilith through the ages. From medieval fear to modern symbol. As time progressed, Lilith's image continued to evolve, molded by the fears and ideologies of each new era. From ancient Mesopotamian tablets to medieval Jewish mysticism, she had already become a powerful and dangerous figure. But in later centuries, her story began shifting yet again, this time shaped less by theology and more by cultural reinterpretation. During the Middle Ages, Lilith remained feared across Jewish communities. Protective amulets were still commonly used, often placed above a baby's cradle to ward off her spirit. These charms included inscriptions of divine names, incantations, and even small illustrations of Lilith, restrained or surrounded by angels. Her image remained tied to infant death, miscarriage, and sexual temptation, yet her presence was not confined to Jewish folklore alone. Elements of her legend filtered into Christian demonology and Islamic traditions as well, though often under different names or merged with other spirits. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Lilith's myth saw a renaissance. Artists, poets, and philosophers rediscovered her story, intrigued by the mystery and power it contained. Romantic painters like Dante Gabriel Rossetti depicted her as a deadly beauty, seductive, dangerous, and magnetic. Poets and authors began writing about her not as a demon, but as a misunderstood spirit, one who suffered exile for claiming autonomy. This reinterpretation deepened in the 20th century, especially through the rise of feminist thought, using her name as a banner for empowerment, independence, and resistance against patriarchal norms. Carl Jung's theories of the shadow self and feminine identity found fertile ground in her story. Scholars and activists began viewing Lilith not as a villain, but as a heroine, the first woman to say no, the first to demand equality, and the first to choose exile over submission. Lilith appears in novels, films, video games, and television, each time slightly different. In Lilith's case, what was once a warning has become a rallying cry. Sometimes she's a vengeful sorceress, other times a tragic figure, or even a guide for lost souls. The core of her legend remains a powerful woman cast out for refusing to be controlled. The unacknowledged aspects of the human psyche, particularly in women denied their full voice in society. In 1972, the feminist magazine Lilith was launched. Psychologists also began exploring Lilith as an archetype. She represented the repressed, the wild. Modern media has continued to explore her character. Her transformation from feared demon to cultural icon speaks to a larger truth. Myths do not stay fixed. They evolve with the societies that tell them. The legacy of Lilith. What she represents today in the modern world. Lilith has risen from the shadows of myth and demonology to become a symbol of resistance, autonomy, and identity. She is no longer confined to dusty manuscripts or fearful bedtime warnings. She is embraced by feminist scholars, artists, and activists as a prototype of rebellion against patriarchal norms. In contrast to Eve, who is often depicted as obedient and punished for curiosity, Lilith is seen as someone who refused to compromise her integrity from the start. Her legacy challenges us to reconsider narratives of obedience, guilt, and gendered power. Instead, she stands as an icon, not of evil, but of empowerment. Her legacy is carried not by religious orthodoxy, but by movements and minds seeking to reclaim suppressed voices. Today, Lilith represents a woman who chose freedom over comfort, selfhood over submission. The figure of Lilith also resonates strongly in discussions of gender and sexuality. In pop culture, Lilith appears with a multitude of faces. In television series like Supernatural, Lucifer, or True Blood, she is associated with the moon, with sexual agency, and with transformation. In conservative religious contexts, she is still viewed with suspicion or rejected entirely. She embodies contradiction, sacred and profane, villain and victim, myth and truth. Her story asks us not just to remember, but to question. What do we do with those who defy the roles given to them? And how do we tell their stories afterward? Some continue to see her as a symbol of chaos, seduction, and rebellion against divine order. In these spaces, she is no longer feared, but honored. She is often portrayed with complexity, as both powerful and vulnerable, mystical and human. These interpretations strip her of simplistic labels and explore the gray areas of her story. Musicians, writers, and visual artists have used her name and image to convey themes of strength, resistance, and defiance. Even in spiritual circles, Lilith has found new meaning. Some modern practitioners of neo-paganism and witchcraft invoke her as a goddess or spirit of feminine power. Yet, despite her rehabilitation, Lilith remains a controversial figure. But perhaps this is the true power of Lilith's legacy. She cannot be simplified. Lilith remembered. Lilith's journey through history is unlike any other in the realm of ancient myth and theology. From her disputed beginnings as Adam's first wife, to her reinvention as a demon, to her modern rebirth as a feminist icon, her refusal to submit was not born of pride, but of principle. She believed in parity, in shared power. And when denied that, she chose exile over erasure. That moment, the decision to walk away from Eden, becomes the core of her legend. It is not an act of evil, it is an act of independence. Lilith defies the boundaries placed upon her. Her story is not static, it is a living narrative shaped by those who choose to tell it. In the earliest sources, Lilith is an equal, formed from the same earth as Adam. As a myth developed, cultures layered her with fear and superstition. She was remade into a seductress, a baby snatcher, and the consort of dark forces. These stories reflected the fears of their time, fears of untamed femininity, of female sexuality, and of those who lived beyond the reach of control. Demonizing Lilith became a method of reinforcing obedience, warning against rebellion, and silencing defiance. Yet history did not forget her. Over time, as societies evolved, so did the meaning of her name. In the hands of artists, scholars, and dreamers, Lilith became a symbol of resilience, not because she was perfect or pure, but because she endured. Her exile turned into survival. Her myth, once whispered with dread, is now spoken with pride. Lilith's legacy is not about whether she existed in a literal sense, it is about what her story represents. She is the voice that refused silence, the figure who stood alone in the wilderness, the name invoked not to curse, but to remember those who were pushed aside for wanting more. Her presence in mythology teaches us that stories are never neutral. They are shaped by power. Who has it, who tells it, and who is denied it. Today, Lilith lives on, not as a monster beneath the bed, but as a mirror. She reflects our fears, our struggles, and our evolving ideals. She reminds us that the stories we suppress are often the ones we need to hear most. And in remembering her, we reclaim not just a myth, but a deeper truth about choice, voice, and the enduring power of refusal.